This video is for the lesson 7.5 homework. We are completing the square today. So it says, what is the name of a method used to solve quadratic equations by changing the form of the equation so that the left side is a perfect square trinomial? So this is completing the square. And then number 2, what is the name of reducing an equation or fraction to a simpler form by cancellation of common factors, regrouping terms in the same variable, or other methods? This is when I tell you to simplify something. Putting your answer in simplest form. All right, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to flip back in our notes to those perfect square trinomials so you can see what they look like. Okay, so perfect square trinomials, where is the first term a perfect square? Is the last term a perfect square? Yes. And then is the middle term twice the product of the square root of the first term? So the square root of 9 is 3, and then twice the product. So 3 times 3 is 6. Times 2 is 12. Again, this is why I don't teach this method a lot. I'm going to show it to you, but all of these you can do with quadratic formula. Okay, so when everything goes downhill really quick, quadratic formula is always something that you can fall back on. So what we're looking at is, do we have a perfect square? Here we don't. -5 is not a perfect square. But we can see if we can make it a perfect square. So remember, I want this side to be a 0, so I could subtract this 3 from both sides, and I would get x squared plus 4x minus 8. Well, that still doesn't give me, that's still not a perfect square. Okay? So at this point, what I'm going to do, since it is not a perfect square, I'm just going to do quadratic formula on it. So this is A, this is B, this is C. So what is our A value when there's not a number there? 1. Not X. X is never an A, B, or C. It's always got to be a number. All right, so -B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C divided by 2A. All right. So -4, we can keep that piece. Then we do what's underneath the square root. So 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times -8 is 48. And then over 2 times 1 is 2. And then we check our square root. So on this one, when I check my square root, it's gross. So again, for you guys, the way I showed you on the quiz today, if it's multiple choice, go through and check your answers. Compare the decimals. Okay? On a paper like this, here's what I want you to do. I want you to type this in. -4 plus the square root of 48 over 2. And then I want you to go back up and change it and do it with a minus sign. I will accept the decimals. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop showing you how to simplify. Okay? I accept the decimals when you're working on your own because, again, I know most likely these are going to be multiple choice. And if you can turn it into a decimal, you can check your answer choices and find it. Later math classes, you're going to have to do this, though. You're going to need this skill. So I'm going to break down 48. So 48 is even. It's divisible by 2. So 2 is prime. 24 is even. It's divisible by 2. 12 is even. It's divisible by 2. 6 is even. So again, we're doing the prime factorization. All right, so I've got -4 plus or minus. I've got 2's and I've got 2's, which is 2 times 2, and that square root has to stay. or that 3 has to stay under the square root. So 2 times 2 is 4, square root of 3. So the square root of 48 and 4 times the square root of 3, those are equivalent. And then over 2. And then you can simplify again. Negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2. 4 divided by 2 is a 2. And so simplifying, your answer would be negative 2 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3. All right, number 5. I'm wondering if we can complete the square on that one. So let's see. Let's add this 3 to both sides, which would give me x squared plus 3x, and then negative 7 plus a 3 would give me a negative 4. Would that give me a perfect square? 1 and 4. I could factor it, though. So if I factor it, 1 times 4, 2 times 2, it wouldn't be a perfect square because I can't use the 2's. That's kind of how you know. If you can use the repeat, then it's a perfect square. So let's just do, again, quadratic formula will solve any of these. You can factor. So if you want to factor this, you would have x plus 4, x minus 1. You could factor and solve. You can do quadratic formula. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. So negative 3 plus or minus. So what's underneath the radical? 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4 is a 25. 2 times 1 is a 2. Check your square root. Square root's a 25, which is, oh, it's nice and pretty. I love it when they're nice and pretty. And then once I get it to here, it's just checking that fraction. So put the fraction in, negative 3 plus 5 over 2. And then I check it again with a subtraction. And so my answers here, x equals a 1 and x equals a negative 4. And if I'd factored, those are the 2 answers. Okay. So there may be multiple ways that you can solve. Quadratic formula will solve them all. All right, number 7. So again, make sure that you're getting all your pieces together. Also make sure that it's in the order right. X squared, then the x in the middle, and the plain old number at the end. That way you get it lettered. You get kind of your code done right. So 2x squared minus 4x minus 6 equals 0. So this is A, this is B, this is C. All right. Also remember, it starts with a negative. If B is a negative, you write that negative down twice. Don't lose a negative sign. Plus or minus B squared minus 4 times A times C divided by 2A. All right, negative 4 is a positive 4. Then we do what's underneath the radical. Negative 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 6 is 64. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we check the radical. Oh, it's nice and pretty. I like it when it's nice and pretty. 4 plus or minus 8 over 4. And then type your fraction in twice. So 4 plus 8 over 4. And 4 minus 8 over 4. So we got 3 x equals 3, x equals -1. And then the last one I'm going to do, I'm going to jump across here to number 10 because it's a gross one. Number 6, so answers here. 4, 2 nice pretty answers. 6 is gross, so give me the decimals on number 6, okay? Again, if you can give me the radical broken down simplified, I'll give you bonus points, but I will accept the 2 decimals on number 6. 8 is nice and pretty. 9 is nice and pretty. 10's gross, so let's work 10 together. All right, 10. So if we add 2 to both sides, we've got 2x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. So this is A, this is B, this is C. Remember, this is a 1 here, so it's a -1. All right, negative B. So -1 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. So -1 is a positive 1. Then we check what's underneath the radical. So you already know it's going to be gross because I've told you it's going to be gross. 17, yeah. No perfect square there. 2 times 2 is 4. The only benefit of at least breaking it down to here is when you do go to type it in to get your decimals, it's just a little bit easier. You're less likely to miss something or to put something extra. All right, so my decimal answers are 1.28078 and -0.780776. This is it. This is as simple as it gets. 17 won't break down. 17's prime. So for this one, if you can get it to this point, you've got the simplest answer. Okay, so if you want to write that one in there as well, 1 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 4. That does it on that one. All right, so that leaves you 4 questions to do. Okay.